The narrative starts with a banner rather than a private discussion or an honest admission. Kody Brown's face is plastered all over it like the star of a rock concert, along with vibrant colors and aggressive typography. However, this was not a turf for comedy, music, or even inspirational speeches. Kody Brown's apology tour was TLC's most recent creation. Fans halted their social media scrolls in shock. Was this thing for real? The poster included names, dates, and reconciliation pledges. Janelle next week. Christine for the next 2 weeks. Lastly, Meri. Apologies for 4 weeks, promoted as a show. In the fans, the announcement was a shock. Viewers have been watching the sister wives disintegrate for years, with each woman gaining her independence and Kody becoming more and more alone. Storylines had become old, ratings had declined, and TLC needed something dramatic. Their response was the poster. However, the fissures were visible beneath the shiny advertisements. This has nothing to do with mending relationships or healing scars. Conflict in production was at issue. TLC was aware that contented wives leading separate lifestyles did not generate revenue. Drama did. This led to the creation of the Apology Tour, which was a manufactured performance intended to reintegrate the women into Kody's circle, rather than a sincere expression of regret. Fans rolled their eyes, laughed, and got ready to pay attention as they gazed at the poster. This was going to be a show, regardless of whether you thought Kody was sincere or not. The poster was just the start. TLC's producers were already hard at work behind the glitzy marketing, piecing together a plot that they believed would rekindle Sister Wives' waning appeal. The show has been drifting for months. Without Kody's continual presence, the women were leading happier, more independent lives. Janelle was flourishing in her own pace, Christine had established her independence, and Meri had quietly entered a state of tranquility. Robyn, the final wife standing next to Kody, appeared to be burdened by the fissures in their union. Silence had replaced the drama that had once propelled the series. Silence also doesn't sell. Fans were bored, according to direct exchanges that took place inside TLC's offices. The ratings were declining. The family stopped communicating with Kody, and the show was becoming less compelling in the absence of conflict. The answer? Create an excuse for the spouses to sit across from Kody once more in order to resurrect previous grievances and start arguments that may be turned into episodes. The Apology Tour was therefore created. It had nothing to do with making amends. It has nothing to do with healing. The idea was to bring the women back within Kody's sphere of influence and make them face the man they had already abandoned. The producers were aware that any apology, no matter how sincere or phony, would evoke strong feelings. Drama also resulted from emotions. The stage was set as the cameras got ready to roll. The women would bring years of experience, suffering, and fortitude to the table, whereas Kody would enter each meeting with prepared remarks. TLC wasn't looking for pardon. They were pursuing fireworks. And the viewers? They were prepared to see the storm's development. Janelle was the first person on Kody Brown's alleged apology tour. He was filmed as he got ready for the meeting, his posture rigid, his words prepared, as if he were walking onto a stage instead of engaging in conversation with a woman who had once been a part of his life. Seated opposite him, Janelle exuded the quiet resilience that had sustained her through years of family turmoil. She didn't wince or hurry to break the stillness. Rather, she allowed Kody to speak, and he apologized in well-chosen words that sounded more like lines from a script than a sincere admission. Reconciliation was not the focus of Janelle's moment. She had already established her own life, been independent, and found serenity away from the never-ending struggle of multiple marriages. Listening to Kody now seemed more like validation of her progress than a sense of closure. There was a mild but noticeable tension. Janelle's calm answers showed a woman who no longer needed his approval, while Kody's remarks lingered in the air, heavy with performance. She wasn't upset or ready to forgive. She was just finished. Nevertheless, TLC's cameras hung around, expecting for tension and sparks. Instead, they managed to capture something much more potent: Janelle's subdued resistance to being drawn back into Kody's sphere of influence. Although it wasn't audible, her strength was unwavering. Even though the apology tour had already started, it was obvious that this was no longer Kody's narrative. It belonged to Janelle. Christine was the second stop on Kody Brown's apology tour, and the atmosphere changed as soon as the cameras started rolling. Christine carried a passion that TLC knew would light the screen, in contrast to Janelle's cool, collected demeanor. Kody showed up with the same stiff stance, his words carefully picked, and the same planned tone. However, Christine wasn't there to be comforted by meaningless apologies. She had already achieved independence and established a successful life without him. She exuded independence as she sat across from Kody now, her self-assurance unfazed by his attempts to change the past. Although the conversation started out courteously, tension was simmering beneath the surface. Christine's eyes conveyed a different message than Kody's attempt to present his apology as a show of kindness. She didn't believe it. For her, the goal was to remain steadfast in the reality of what had already occurred rather than to make amends. Christine's determination appeared to reflect every word Kody spoke. She didn't bend, but she did listen. She smiled, but it wasn't a forgiving grin. Rather, it was the smile of someone who had already moved on, who recognized her value, and who wasn't going to let the past to hold her back. The subtle conflict between Kody's performance and Christine's genuineness was captured by TLC's cameras. The filmmakers were hoping for sparks, but what they got was something even more captivating: Christine's subdued reluctance to portray the hurt ex-wife. Christine wasn't scared to prove to the public that she didn't require Kody's apology to justify her independence, because this was now her stage. Christine's apology during the second week was very different from the first. The atmosphere was tense this time before Kody had ever entered the room, in contrast to the first meeting, which had been courteous and almost restrained. Although Christine had previously stated that she didn't require his words, she was now prepared to face the more serious wounds, which TLC knew would cause a stir. Kody took a seat, his face strained, his apologies practiced once more. Christine, however, had no interest in performing. Leaning forward, she pierced through the facade with a steady yet incisive voice. She reminded him of the years of disregard, the unfulfilled promises, and how his decisions had forced her to retake her freedom. Every phrase came down hard and unavoidable like a stone. Christine was unfazed by Kody's attempts to defend himself by placing blame and distorting the facts. She spoke with the lucidity of someone who had already recovered because she had survived the pandemonium. Her refusal to allow him to change the past was more powerful than simply walking away. The conversation became more abrasive as the tension increased. Every moment was documented by TLC's cameras, including the sharp silences, the clash of voices, and the indisputable fact that Kody was still trapped in the shadow of the past while Christine had gone on. It captivated audiences. The apology tour became far more potent than the producers had anticipated because of Christine's unwavering resolve, which lit up the screen. This was confrontation, not reconciliation. And Christine declared herself victorious in that altercation. By the end, Christine's strength overpowered Kody's words, making them seem empty. The trip delivered a reckoning instead of the apologies it had promised. During the last week of his apology tour, Kody Brown met Meri in person. Their relationship had been characterized for years by silence, distance, and a gradual breakdown that was witnessed by millions of people. In an attempt to end the tour on a high note, Kody arrived under the bright lights of TLC's cameras and offered one final apology. Meri sat calmly, her expression unreadable and her posture composed. She had experienced the highs and lows of multiple marriages, the heartache of being ignored, and the arduous process of finding who she was apart from Kody. She was past needing his words by the time he started talking. Kody apologized in a methodical yet insincere manner. He talked about desiring peace and regretting his mistakes. But rather than being sincere, his voice held the weight of performance. Meri listened, nodding now and then, but her quiet was more powerful than any argument. She wasn't upset. She didn't harbor resentment. She was just finished. The event didn't have the pyrotechnics that TLC was hoping for. There was no yelling, no dramatic altercation, and no heartfelt reconciliation. What transpired instead was much more potent: Meri's silent closure. She didn't have to forgive or engage in conflict. Kody's remarks were like echoes of a past she had left behind. She had already achieved serenity. Viewers witnessed a woman who had regained her strength as the cameras lingered. Meri's independence was the main theme of the conclusion, rather than Kody's apologies. And Meri gave the most definitive conclusion of all in that quiet, in that composed unwillingness to be drawn back into past wounds. The apology tour ended with Meri's silent triumph, rather than with reconciliation. One person stayed in the background while the apology tour continued, uneasily observing the spectacle: Robyn Brown. In contrast to Janelle, Christine, or Meri, Robyn remained bound to Kody and resided within the precarious framework of their marriage. However, even she was unable to break free from the plot that TLC had created. Robyn stated her viewpoint before Kody could have a meeting with his ex-wives. McKelty claims that Robyn demanded that Kody talk to her first, as if he needed to get her approval before confronting the ladies he had once loved. It was about control and protecting the boundaries of a relationship that was already damaged by mistrust, not just about appearances. Robyn made tough but discreet requests, which were captured on camera. She desired guidelines, restrictions, and guarantees. She saw these gatherings as risky interactions with ladies who had previously experienced Kody's closeness, rather than as innocent discussions. The prospect of reignited feelings, or worse, betrayal, was always present in her thoughts. Kody obeyed, torn between his marital worries and the demands of the show. He tried to allay Robyn's anxieties by explaining the strategy to her. However, the tension was evident. Robyn's mistrust was evident in every word she spoke, every look she gave him, and every need she set. It was gold to TLC. The plot now focused on the rifts in Kody and Robyn's relationship, rather than just apologies. Once described as his closest ally, the woman now seemed cautious, guarded, even suspicious. Viewers witnessed the disintegration of the final connection Kody had in that suspicion. Robyn had more than simply boundaries in her regulations. They have to do with surviving. And as the apology tour went on, it became evident that Kody was no longer trusted, even in his own marriage. One person stayed in the background while the apology tour continued, uneasily observing the spectacle: Robyn Brown. In contrast to Janelle, Christine, or Meri, Robyn remained bound to Kody and resided within the precarious framework of their marriage. However, even she was unable to break free from the plot that TLC had created. Robyn stated her viewpoint before Kody could have a meeting with his ex-wives. McKelty claims that Robyn demanded that Kody talk to her first, as if he needed to get her approval before confronting the ladies he had once loved. It was about control and protecting the boundaries of a relationship that was already damaged by mistrust, not just about appearances. Robyn made tough but discreet requests, which were captured on camera. She desired guidelines, restrictions, and guarantees. She saw these gatherings as risky interactions with ladies who had previously experienced Kody's closeness, rather than as innocent discussions. The prospect of reignited feelings, or worse, betrayal, was always present in her thoughts. Kody obeyed, torn between his marital worries and the demands of the show. He tried to allay Robyn's anxieties by explaining the strategy to her. However, the tension was evident. Robyn's mistrust was evident in every word she spoke, every look she gave him, and every need she set. It was gold to TLC. The plot now focused on the rifts in Kody and Robyn's relationship, rather than just apologies. Once described as his closest ally, the woman now seemed cautious, guarded, even suspicious. Viewers witnessed the disintegration of the final connection Kody had in that suspicion. Robyn had more than simply boundaries in her regulations. They have to do with surviving. And as the apology tour went on, it became evident that Kody was no longer trusted, even in his own marriage. Ratings were the real motivation behind Kody Brown's apology tour, which was never concealed. As the women established lives apart from Kody, TLC saw a decline in the number of viewers. Their contentment and self-reliance left little space for the explosive drama that used to characterize sister women. The audience expected conflict, confrontation, and the unvarnished breakdown of relationships. They weren't watching for tranquility. The producers were aware of it. Happily ever afters don't sell. Tension, uncomfortable silences, and the sting of unhealed wounds are what sell. Therefore, the apology tour was designed to provoke rather than to heal. The purpose of each meeting was to reintroduce the women into Kody's world, to rehash old wounds, and to start discussions that could be turned into cliffhangers. Every apology turned into a drama, and every response into a plot point. Resistance was framed as Janelle's silent fortitude. Christine's fierce independence turned into conflict. Closure was edited into Meri's stillness. The story also touched on Robyn's insecurities, portraying her restrictions as protective while exposing marital flaws. It was a risk for TLC. Could they make television gold out of Kody's meaningless remarks? Could they turn the freedom of women into a narrative that captivated viewers? For the producers, at least, the response was in the affirmative. Because viewership is driven by conflict, and ratings are driven by viewership. Therefore, the apology tour was about TLC's survival rather than Kody's regret. Reconciliation was not being pursued by the cameras. They were pursuing figures. The crowd exploded when the apology tour appeared on the screens. Every social media channel was ablaze with incredulity, sarcasm, and non-stop criticism. When Kody Brown's apologies were planned like concert dates, Sister Wives fans who had been watching the show for years couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Memes circulate quickly on Twitter. Some made fun of the concept of purchasing tickets to see Kody apologize, while others featured him holding a microphone under neon lights. Exaggerated sketches were woven into the episode's video by TikTok artists, who made fun of the awkward silences and flimsy excuses that followed. Reimagined as a spoof tour flyer, Instagram was inundated with revisions of the poster, complete with fictitious ticket prices and VIP apology packages. However, not every response was one of laughing. Many viewers expressed their dissatisfaction and accused TLC of taking advantage of the family's suffering in order to increase viewership. They contended that it was manipulative to bring the wives back into Kody's orbit when they had already moved on. Others acknowledged that the ridiculousness itself was too much to see and that they couldn't take their eyes off it. There was a clear split among the audience. Some came to witness the spectacle, some to find closure, and many just to see the mayhem. TLC was successful in one area. Everyone was talking about the apology tour. Ultimately, the fan responses were included into the plot. The tour was taking place on millions of phones, laptops, and living rooms, where people were debating, laughing, and getting angry together. It wasn't simply occurring on screen. And TLC got exactly what it desired, attention, in that whirlwind of responses. The entire apology tour revolved around Christine's episodes. Her energy changed the story from the first moment she sat across from Kody. In contrast to Meri's serene closure or Janelle's quiet strength, Christine brought fire, an unwavering independence that TLC couldn't help but highlight. Viewers were moved by her refusal to accept Kody's prepared excuses. She challenged rather than merely listening. She brought to his attention the years of disregard, the unfulfilled vows, and the decisions that had prompted her to seek her independence back. Every look showed a woman who had already healed, and every word was laden with the weight of truth. The audiences were enthralled. Social media was ablaze with admiration for Christine's bravery and not pretending to be the injured ex-wife. Fans applauded her tenacity, her lucidity, and her refusal to allow Kody to change history as videos of her altercations went viral. Viewers recognized her as the epitome of resilience, since she was not just surviving but thriving. Christine had excellent ratings for TLC. Fans were most interested in, spoke about, and passionate about her episodes. She was the breakout star who transformed the apology tour from a pointless plot point into a confrontation. And Christine asserted her triumph in that spotlight. The tour was now about her rather than Kody. Her truth, her passion, and her independence. Once established, the Christine effect was irreversible. Following Christine's intense altercations, the focus returned to Janelle. She was different, calm, grounded, and steady. Janelle possessed a calm strength that didn't require shouting to be heard, whereas Christine had brought fire. Janelle's manner made it obvious that she wasn't there to be persuaded, even when Kody came in with the same prepared tone and well-chosen phrases. She listened calmly and patiently, and her quiet was more persuasive than any argument. With each nod, pause, and measured answer, it became clear that the woman had already established her own existence, one that was independent of Kody's approval. The tension was simmering beneath the surface and wasn't explosive. Kody attempted to make his apology appear significant, but Janelle's composed expression seemed to take away its impact. She didn't require his approval. She had already established herself and shown that she could support herself. While the absence of fireworks may have annoyed TLC, fans found it to be intriguing in its own right. Janelle's strength was unwavering rather than loud. She demonstrated that independence doesn't always yell but can also whisper, steady and certain and unmoving. Ultimately, Janelle's silent strength turned into a victory of her own. She just stood her ground without confronting or arguing. She then disclosed the truth in that silence. She had already moved past the need for Kody's apology, thus it wasn't essential. The apology tour concluded with Kody meeting Meri, his wife, whose relationship with him had previously been characterized by silence and remoteness. Viewers had been watching their relationship deteriorate for years, with each season removing a layer of distance until just pieces were left. In an attempt to end the tour on a high note, Kody now showed up in front of TLC's cameras with a final apology. Meri was seated across from him, her demeanor firm and quiet. She had gone through the loneliness of a failing marriage, the heartache of being marginalized, and the protracted process of finding herself again outside of Kody's shadow. She was past needing his words by the time he started talking. Kody apologized in a thoughtful, well-worded, yet insincere manner. He talked about desiring peace and regretting his mistakes. But rather than being sincere, his voice held the weight of performance. Meri listened, nodding now and then, but her quiet was more powerful than any argument. She wasn't upset. She didn't harbor resentment. All she had done was close the chapter of her life that had previously been about him. The event didn't have the pyrotechnics that TLC was hoping for. There was no yelling, no dramatic altercation, and no heartfelt reconciliation. What transpired instead was much more potent: Meri's silent closure. She didn't have to forgive or engage in conflict. Kody's remarks were like echoes of a past she had left behind. She had already achieved serenity. Viewers witnessed a woman who had regained her strength as the cameras lingered. Meri's independence was the main theme of the conclusion, rather than Kody's apologies. And Meri gave the most definitive conclusion of all in that quiet, in that composed unwillingness to be drawn back into past wounds. The apology tour ended with Meri's silent triumph, rather than with reconciliation. Robyn Brown's discomfort started to take center stage as the apology tour progressed. Robyn was still dependent on Kody, the last surviving wife, whereas Janelle, Christine, and Meri had already become independent. However, the trip revealed flaws that even she was unable to avoid. Robyn insisted on rules before every meeting. She wanted Kody to talk to her first, to tell her what he was going to say, to convince her that he would only be communicating verbally with the women he had once loved. It was about mistrust, not just about limits. Reviving past relationships could arouse something, a spark of closeness that could jeopardize the tenuous ties she still shared with him, Robyn feared. Her voice was tense as the cameras captured her stern yet silent requests. She was cautious, watchful, and extremely insecure, yet she wasn't angry. It was remarkable to viewers. The woman who had been portrayed as Kody's closest supporter now seemed uneasy, her self-assurance shattered by the same plot that was supposed to demonstrate reconciliation. Kody obeyed, but his obedience simply served to highlight the disparity. In his previous marriage, he was a guy bargaining confidence rather than the patriarch demanding allegiance. And Robyn's insecurity confirmed what many fans had long suspected. Rifts were beginning to appear even in the relationship that remained. It was ideal drama for TLC. The tour gained a new dimension as a result of Robyn's discomfort, which changed the emphasis from regrets to mistrust and from reconciliation to vulnerability. Viewers witnessed the last thread holding Kody's world together coming apart in that fragility. Robyn's insecurity was more than simply a side story. It was the subtle realization that even his closest relationship was no longer indestructible. There were a lot of questions in the air when Kody Brown's apology tour came to an end. Had anything really changed? For the sake of television, had the apologies reopened wounds or had they healed them? The wives did not change as they left. Meri carried her silent closure like a shield. Christine stood stronger than ever in her liberation, and Janelle stayed steadfast in her independence. Even Robyn, Kody's final wife, showed signs of distrust, and her uneasiness is now a plot point.